Situated Design Research by Clea. This is my notebook. We first discovered that there were various sites to investigate or to consider. The first one we discovered was the milk market. We thought about this, but we thought maybe there wasn't enough space for an installation, and it also has been recently updated. We looked at, or we discussed the train station and thought that this had been done before. We then thought about Arthur's Quay, and we had considered that site because it seemed a waste of space, but we finally thought that there was a more busier place. I was quite serious in addressing the bins. I don't think this was received by the team very well, but I'm very passionate about this. I think it's a very important environmental and health issue that has been neglected in the city. Having said that, we were happy with our final decision, which was based outside Penny's, Patrick Street, the centre of the city, the heart of the city, and a place that really has a lot of potential to attract more people in a more comfortable manner. This is from the Elemental Festival, which happened 3 years ago now. It was a real interesting historic reflection of Limerick, and also an interesting way or medium to portray the city. Jacob Stack here has used illustration, and as you can see, the milk market is very significant. And I thought about this because I like this flyer because it's a gift as well, and if you open it up you will see this illustration in quite a large format, larger than A3. This is some research in Copenhagen just showing clearly where people can go and for what reason. I was fortunate enough to look at the development of this project, which was a garden for a school that was really looking at innovative ways to entice people to visit and to relax, and also to communicate, and also to teach. This is an outdoor classroom, and I really like the way the seating is arranged here in a concentric circles, also having a Celtic feel of our heritage. Here we looked at some play testing within one of the classes where we really brainstormed on all different kinds of scenarios, which was quite interesting. And these are all in the presentation. Limerick is a city of culture. It has historical references rooted in its culture. And this is a photo of me taken of St. John's Cathedral, which is the highest point in Limerick, but just showing that things have changed a lot, and really important buildings of stature and listed buildings have been knocked down, unfortunately. And we can see a great loss in our site of Penny's outside the main shopping and pedestrian areas of the city. Here I talk about altering things from objects to street plans in order to process our own environments in our unique way. I talk about why we chose the postcards. It was prevalent in finding connections of people and traditions, and also remembering old buildings that once existed and people were once proud of, and people really are proud of the memories also. We chose the postcards to bring awareness to these points in an attempt to connect society. Ideally, more postcards and more reactions would have been created. It would be our essential goal, but unfortunately on the circumstances we were quite limited in what we could do. The postcards are entwined. They could be connected in a way with string hanging in some sort. I investigated all those. Unfortunately, I didn't have Photoshop, so I could not illustrate that. The postcards weren't intended not only a piece of art, but as a way to open anonymous conversations and reminders open to all, on display to all, messages to new, old friends and family, to authorities or in business, on a reflection of Limerick. And I found that people were really proud of their roots and their heritage. And as a gift for that time, we gave a postcard in appreciation. So that was also a reason why we chose the postcards. In the scenario-based design, I talk about the experience I had in quite depth in 3 spaces that I was lucky to go to. I went to a cafe. I found very rich, informative account of people's experiences. My reflections I talk about was in the cafe mostly, and bumping into a neighbor in a shop. And also I had some interesting reactions one evening in the pub, earlier in the pub. I was lucky enough to talk to my daughter's grandmother, and she was very I suppose a big member of society in her day. She worked in Cruises Hotel, so I speak of her, a bit about her background here, and how she talked about Old Cruises Street, how the hotel once existed and now the street has replaced the hotel. Here's some postcards that I worked on in other projects, which also brought me in a way to kind of ask people for information, or to even make people aware of issues. A postcard doesn't seem so direct, and it's almost a way people can associate fun things with postcards, or that it has a certain familiar and nostalgic connotations. So it doesn't really seem that you're really asking for something. It's a collaboration and I suppose a certain compromise. So this was the gift, clearly showing the LIT logo. And here was some inspiration where we got our questions from. This is from 2019 Architecture of Limerick Open Day, Open House. And here, this is a postcard and a card, and this shows the University of Limerick, the Glucksman Library, and we can see here some interesting feedback that the organisers wanted to retrieve from people as they visited the venues. We thought about many questions to ask. Should we write a letter, drop in a postcard, ask people to respond with a postcard using the mailbox, maybe social media responses, and we really did discuss many ways of retrieving the information we needed. Here is practicing the handwriting that was prevalent on the postcard, reminding people of how we used to write, how we were taught to write, and I thought it would be more personal than just printing something out or typesetting. Here I just mentioned that monuments arouse interest and opens the gap between landscape and present and past. Roads and crossroads also are monuments in the sense of reminders, and these incessant references are always there to remind us of history and the frequent cross connections that we all experience. Another little detail was highlighting the green postbox in the postcard. Gave a certain cohesiveness to our exploration, reminding people to send that card to an old friend or family member of an old time, of an old place, maybe that they knew well, almost informing a gesture and provoking memory and nostalgia, conversation, as opposed to a holiday postcard, which sometimes is not really a great gift at times. Creating further connections and considering the display of the installation. We considered colors, and I considered colors more because I wanted to add some color to the black and white old photos. But also it was a way of maybe creating some kind of tapestry or a way of connecting the cards. Not necessarily to mind map the topics. I think that got lost in translation. It seemed to me I want to make this note that maybe little consideration was given to the main objective. Maybe because we had spent so much time on the research, possibly ran out of steam. I felt we were going around in circles at one point. When there was enough research done. Here are the 4 questions, the 4 kind of topics that maybe we were looking at, ways of connecting the cards, not necessarily the topics. I didn't understand that, but the questions were derived from history, usability, emotion, and habit. Here's one of the first drafts of the poem. As you can see, it's quite rough. Gathering Under the Clock. It's a story about events and time, and how if you're in a hurry you might forget and things get a bit disorganized and maybe even chaotic. Here is one other idea of the dome-like structure we discussed, and we were brought to our attention that one exists in Sheffield, whereas this would be more opaque. You could see slight impressions. It wouldn't be completely transparent because I wanted it to be more a softer experience. And I think if it was, I'm not sure, I just feel it would be better if it wasn't pure glass or purely transparent. So on both sides of the walkway you would have the cards hanging so people could interact with them and look at both sides, which I also thought was a very important element of the project, which I thought got a bit lost. Here was just another quick sketch of how we thought of displaying the cards in different colored string to create contrast and visual appeal. And also, as discussed in our presentation, the postbox itself I thought would be a really good way to exhibit the postcards if we had some tangible means. And in conclusion, with a very interesting excerpt from Anthropology of Supermodernity by Olga. He says, from refugee camps to the crusted luxury of a 5-star hotel, some experience of non-place is today an essential component of all social existence. Hence, the very particular and ultimately paradoxical character of what is sometimes regarded in the West as a fashion for cocooning, retreating into the self. Never before has individual histories, because of their necessary relations with space, image, and consumption, never before has been so deeply entangled with general history. Thank you. I would like to have more Photoshop explorations of my sketches, which is well within my skills, but unfortunately I was unable with many attempts to find a compatible machine with compatible software. So it is a great disappointment to me. Thank you.